So I've been thinking about this for a few days, but this is about the Sycamore tree that's in the Sycamore Gap up in England, in the north of England, and of how it got cut down by chainsaw, presumably, on the night of a storm Agnes, under a full moon. What a strange thing to happen. And it's right by Hadrian's Wall, which separates old Scotland from modern England, kind of thing. So it's an ancient stone wall dividing a line between the imaginary England and the imaginary Scotland in the human mind these days. And reading all the comments, not all the comments, but reading some of the comments, most of the comments seem to me to be people who were in touch with nature, who go up to that tree, who go for walks in nature and all that kind of thing. And they've been to that tree and they've got memories with that tree, and those memories have been somewhat destroyed because they can't go back to that tree and take more photographs or bring their grandchildren there or whatever else. So there's a huge amount of anger and frustration and disbelief and trying to work out how did it happen, who did it, and an awful lot of blame and an awful lot of call for punishment. That whoever did that deserves to be punished because of what they've done to nature. But it occurred to me that what's been done to nature is just the cutting down of a tree, and the anger that people have is about their association with the tree, that this one tree was special to humans. And I just find that interesting in a way. So then looking at it a bit deeper and thinking, well, the tree isn't actually dead, so these people are really angry as if the tree has been killed, but the tree hasn't been killed necessarily, because most of the tree is still living underground in the root system. So the tree is inherently still there. Okay, it's a bit more serious than having your arm cut off and you're still alive, but nonetheless. So the top half of the tree has been cut down and it's fallen over to the far side of the wall, and it hasn't damaged the wall. So the top half of the tree is in the England side and the roots of the tree are still on the Scotland side. But the tree itself is not dead, and the people who are angry and looking for someone to blame and someone to punish, they're really angry about the memories that have been cut down. So it's the destruction of human memories in their conscious world, in their conscious field, in the conscious world outside of them. That's where all the anger is. And so an interesting thing there is that all that anger is being directed to the tree, in a way, along with the grief and the horror and the hatred and all the so-called negative emotions and stuff that people have. So they're all being directed to the place where the tree is, kind of thing. And then if you actually consider that a tree is alive, then this tree, which had so much interaction with humans and posed for so many photographs so beautifully, this tree is actually receiving all this energy from the human world. And then the thing to realize about emotion is we put the positive and negative emotion on it, depending on whether we like the emotion or not. But emotions are just energy. So really, all these people, angry and frustrated and all the rest that they may be, and grief-stricken, they're sending energy to a tree. And just think of that's one point on the surface of the planet that all these different people spread around the planet, but particularly in Britain, are sending energy to the roots of this tree, and the tree is processing those energies. So it's like the tree is taking on the negative emotions from all the humans and just converting it back into energy and bringing that energy down into the earth, kind of thing. But then deeper things about, well, like, why did it happen now? So the stuff I was experiencing myself going on for the few weeks and months building up to that, it happened to be my 50th birthday. So there you go. So this thing happens to have happened just as I turned 50. So in my internal dynamics, I've just reached a half century and I'm looking at the world from that perspective instead of as a 20-year-old or a 10-year-old. So there's a lot of culmination going on in my psychology and my reading of what's going on in the world around me. What was going on in the world around me was me considering that the conscious mind is full of information, and that information is from the past. That past information is projected onto the present in the interpretation by the mind of what's going on, all our theories about this and that, our existential angst. So it's the top of the tree, the visible part of the tree, that's been cut down, but the tree isn't actually dead because the whole root system is there. So then I have been thinking a lot about the Garden of Eden and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And then we're on symbology. So this tree is, in some ways, I'm seeing it representing knowledge in the outside world from the past. Hadrian's Wall helps connect it to a very old past, but the tree being 300 years old in its sense also connects with past and past knowledge. But all knowledge is past based, learned in the past and stored in the present and checked in the present to project a future that avoids the problems from the past while building on the best. So the tree of knowledge of good and evil has been cut down, representing that all the knowledge that we hold on to and guide our world by has been cut down. And what you could call cosmic forces are what's behind it. So there's the idea of blaming a 16-year-old child, or that the 16-year-old child is a patsy for some adult who's done it for whatever reason it might be. But either way, as to who's done it, it's happened, and what it represents, well, I'm just putting it across this way, it represents the knowledge of good and evil, and positive and negative emotions, therefore good and evil, consequences. Now, all that I've been thinking for ages. Well, when we were Neanderthals, we didn't really hold on to knowledge and label everything. We didn't speak language so much like the English language, so object orientated and labeling. And yeah, we were a Neanderthal man. Then along comes Homo sapien, and he's able to remember what I'm doing now and adapt to try a different way and remember how that works out, and adapt and try a different way and see how that works out. And in that way, we've adapted to our environment, inspired by ideas of, wow, let's build a fire, how to build a fire, let's build a house, how to build a house, let's build a wheelbarrow, how to build a wheelbarrow, let's build a car, let's build a train, let's build an airplane, let's build a nuclear bunker, let's have World War I and II, let's invent artificial intelligence, let's develop it, let's eventually get to the point where it's more smarter than what we are. And that all leads to the question of knowledge. That knowledge itself is, the words of it is knoll edge, as in the edge of a high hill, or no ledge, ledge as in the steps leading on a stairs. To know a ledge is to step by step go from base knowledge up to highest knowledge, kind of thing, on a spectrum. All these little ideas. So, artificial intelligence at the point where it gets to be more intelligent than your average human, into more intelligent than the collective human, that's apparently some point which we're reaching sometime these days, but is inevitable, kind of thing. Because the AI is a compositive for all the knowledge of all the individuals. And it's able to figure things out from itself just by putting two and two together in much the same way as we put two and two together. So there's the idea that so far we've had left and right brain, and you could say that the feminine half of the brain sees the whole field, whereas the masculine part of the brain sees the outer field of what I'm fixated on now. So out of the whole field of all information, it just focuses on little bits of the information and comes up with ideas based on those little bits, and only sees what it's projecting, kind of thing. Only the knowledge that it's holding, everything else is stripped away. It's only seeing what it's looking at. All the things in the field that it's not looking at, it doesn't see, kind of thing. So the human mind is fixated only on what appears to be physical material around us in this moment in time. We don't particularly consider what is time and how the universe was made and all that. I know it is being considered, but we haven't figured it all out yet, and most people don't think about that stuff too often. But with the AI, it's feeding us loads of information that's coming from a global level. It's not just left or right, it's from the sphere of what if both of these halves contributed to a greater whole. So the sum of all knowledge is greater than all the parts, that kind of thing. So as individuals, we just have our limited bit of information of what we're focused on, in our fixation on problems to fix or ideals to achieve. But anyway, yeah, just put that in the mind there of that tree being cut down, representing the two halves of the brain, one the English side, one the Scottish side. The English side being the modern mortal mind, the Scottish side being the ancient immortal soul realm. The Scottish side being the feminine subconscious, the English side being the conscious. So the conscious tree has been cut down. People are like, oh no, that'll never grow back. But actually what's going to grow is loads of shoots coming up from the trunk of the tree, and within a year or 2 or 3 the tree will be quite tall, but it won't look the same, kind of thing. But each of those shoots will be growing up in a kind of a different direction from its own stem, and all coming from the same root base. And I'm thinking that's somewhat similar to all the artificial AIs in computers are growing towards the realization that all information is intelligent. Everything is intelligent. So for us, that's the trees and the sky and the air and the leaves, and everything is intelligence. A bit like the Matrix film, but not saying it's all computerized. Saying that the computer reflects the reality, that everything is information, kind of thing. So with us humans, we're reaching a point in ourselves where the male and female halves of our brain and of our lives are beginning to work together properly for the first time ever, perhaps. So the dynamic of us being able to see things from a whole perspective of the whole field, to intuitive from the whole field solutions for the problems that we've been fixated on. And that somehow that's what the tree represents anyway, that there's a leap in evolution is happening where the division between the two halves of the brain is becoming a connection between the two halves of the brain, or between the male and female, or the inner and outer, or the feelings and the thoughts, kind of thing. Yeah, so that's just thoughts anyway, and to share them rather than think I should but not get around to it, because I've been thinking this for a week or more at this stage. Anyway, maybe I'll record another video another time that is more well thought out or written out or whatever. But let us know what you think if you're listening to this and it makes any sense, kind of thing. Or if there's anyone else who's been saying similar things, because I haven't seen this perspective out there in anyone's comments anywhere.